All right. Greetings, everyone. My name is Jonathan Lochner. I am Instructional Support Assistant for the Chemistry Department at Palomar College. And the purpose of this video is to show you uh, two things. Number one, how to access, download, and install Microsoft Office 365, which includes, among other things, Microsoft Excel. And then aim number two is to show you how to use Microsoft Excel in order to create, depending on who you talk to or where you read it, sometimes known as a chart or a plot or a graph of data. So you'll find, at least on several occasions during courses in chemistry lab, that you will be asked to measure something or several things, collect measurements, and then plot that data in Microsoft Excel and look at the relationship between one variable and another. And again, the first aim is how to get Excel onto your computer. The second aim is how to use Excel to plot data. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see my computer screen and the way I navigate as we go along. So we're in screen sharing. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open an internet browser. I prefer to use Google Chrome. It's my favorite. I am operating on a Windows PC running Windows 10. And again, this is Google Chrome internet browser. So the first thing is I want to show you is that you should know this as a student at Palomar College, you have access to some free resources that you should definitely take advantage of. So the resource I want you to be aware of is that not only do you have email, right? So upon admission to Palomar College, right here, you are provided an email address, username at student.palomar.edu. You can find this email address, the one that's unique to you, on the Welcome tab in your My Palomar account, right? And so this is great. You use this to correspond with faculty, with staff, with other students, you name it. That's great. This is part of the implementation of Microsoft Office 365. Okay. Now, I want to emphasize this. Please don't miss this. Microsoft Office 365 is free for you as a student of Palomar College. Microsoft Office 365 includes online versions of Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Outlook. Plus, you'll receive 1 terabyte of cloud storage using OneDrive. So that's pretty exciting. So these are resources that if you're not already taking advantage of, I highly recommend that you take advantage of them. So we'll briefly talk about OneDrive, the cloud storage device. And then we'll focus on Microsoft Excel. That's the main driving purpose direction that we're heading with this video is how do you use Microsoft Excel to plot data in the context of chemistry laboratory. So, but before we get there, I want to make sure everybody is comfortable with how to obtain Microsoft Office 365 access and then download the software. So again, you have this student.palomar.edu email address, and you have your login. And then from this page, this is the Enrollment Services webpage. From this page, you can click here to log into Microsoft Office 365. When you click on this link, you're greeted with this page here. So you have the clock tower and a part of Palomar College San Marcos campus in the background and a sign-in. So you type in your email address and then click next, and then you'll be asked to enter your password associated with that account, and then enter into Microsoft Outlook online. So that is one possible way that you can check your email and that you can write emails to faculty and to students and so forth. I don't have a student email account, so I'm not going to go ahead and click this, but this is where you would go. So I'm going to show you what it looks like for me as a staff employee. It's slightly different, but it'll still be illustrative. So I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to click on my bookmark here for Palomar email, and it instantly opens up Outlook because I set up Google Chrome browser to save all of my passwords for my frequently accessed websites, so that it's just more convenient for me. So anyway, the email client is open. We're looking at Outlook Online, and what I want to draw our attention to is this button, this icon in the upper left-hand corner. It's got this kind of symmetrical arrangement of 9 white dots or boxes. It's called the App Launcher. You click on it, and you see a pane that opens on the left-hand side that lists all the apps that are available to you. Now, I am a staff employee, and so I have a few additional apps that are available to me. But as a student, you are able to access for free Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, Excel, and OneDrive. So these 6 apps at the top here. And we'll get to this button in a moment, this Office 365 button. Okay, but I wanna just show you OneDrive. So OneDrive is useful to be aware of because it is a cloud storage location. And if you recall, I pointed out to you on that enrollment services webpage, students have 1 terabyte of storage on this cloud space. So you'll notice that I only have a few files on my OneDrive storage space. That's just because for many years up until my current role at Palomar College, I have been a heavy user of Google Drive, which is an alternative cloud storage space. So this is OneDrive. This is Microsoft's version of Google Drive, if that helps you to make that connection. So you can see your files listed here. The beauty of having a cloud storage space is that they're saved and they're secure and they're always there to be recovered no matter what. If you had these files simply stored locally on your personal computer and then your hard drive crashed or your computer was stolen or lost in some way, you might be unable to retrieve or recover those files. But if you get in the habit of saving files to a cloud location, then there are way more options, okay? It's a great place to back up files, especially for your schoolwork. So that's as much as I want to say about OneDrive. This is the view of OneDrive on a web browser. There is a way to get OneDrive as well as the other apps downloaded and installed locally. And so I'm going to show you that. So all these buttons will allow you to access the online versions, the internet browser-based versions of these Microsoft apps. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to take us to a location where I can show you how to install Office. So just to review, I was at the App Launcher, right? And I clicked on Office 365, and it took me to this alternative view. So the apps are listed at the top here and some recent files that I had worked with and so forth. And there's this button up here called Install Office. When I click on this, I get a couple options. Just go with the default, which is the first option, Office 365 apps. When I click on this, you'll notice 2 things. So it downloaded a file, an executable file. So set up some more stuff, Office, the .exe, an executable file. And then it also displays this window that says just a few more steps and then step 1, 2, 3. So basically download, you click on this file, you click run, you say yes, and you stay online, okay? So you would open up this file, click run, it would say, are you sure you want to install this software? And you click yes, and then it'll go through the installation process. And then the first time that you open one of the apps from that Office 365 package, whether it's Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Excel, or any of the others, it will greet you with this Activate Office window, where you'll be asked to enter your account information, and that is your Palomar email. In your case, as a student, it would be your username at student.palomar.edu, and then of course your password. And the password you use is the one that you created for your My Palomar account. All right, that will activate your use of the Office software, and it will certify you as a legitimate Palomar College student, and you're off to the races. I'm not going to go ahead and do this because I already have the programs installed on my computer. So I'm just going to close this, and I'm going to ignore this executable file here. Okay. And we'll just assume that you have gone through those steps. You downloaded the executable file, you clicked on it, you ran it, you said yes, please install, and then on the first instance of opening that software, you activated it by entering your email address and password. So we're going to shift away from this web browser view of Office 365 and go directly to the full service installed on your computer version of Microsoft Excel. And you might ask why. Well, I'll tell you a reason why that is really pertinent to the context of doing the work you need to do for chemistry laboratory courses. Okay, so a number of instances during chemistry lab, you may be asked to collect data. I said this before, but collect data and then manipulate that data, create a plot or a graph using Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel Online, which is what I'm looking at just for a moment here, is useful, but it has some limitations. And some of those limitations are not good. They don't allow you to do everything you need to do to complete your assignment for chemistry lab. If you populate some cells with some data, and then you try to take that data and generate a chart, all right? So like insert a chart, I'll go scatter. Obviously I haven't entered any data at all, so it's just a blank scatter plot. What you can find is what you won't find, rather, is you cannot add a trend line, and therefore you can't obtain an equation for that trend line, and you can't generate the R squared, which we'll talk about later. So there's definitely a glaring limitation if you try to just use Excel Online. It's great that it exists, and you have free access to it, so please take advantage of it. But know that if you really want to achieve what you need to achieve in its fullest for your chemistry assignment, you're going to need to use the full version that's downloaded and installed on your computer. Okay, so we're going to leave this web browser view, and we're going to go to Microsoft Excel on my computer. And for that, I'm going to open up Microsoft Excel and then show you the view. It takes a few seconds to load up because I have some add-ins. Okay, so let me fix this view. Great. Let's pretend we're starting from scratch, blank workbook. This is no longer in Google Chrome browser. This is actually in the Microsoft Excel application that I have installed on my computer. And let's begin by entering data. So either you're given data set in an assignment, or you will have collected data during a laboratory experiment. And I'm just going to generically create some data. I like to have headers. It's not necessary, but I like to have headers. So I'll start with this column A, this header x-axis, and column B, y-axis. And then I'm going to just create some fictitious data. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll pick a simple algebraic relationship. Let's just say y equals 3x. And what I mean to say is, for each value of x, I'm going to multiply that by 3 to obtain the corresponding y value. So 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 12, 15, 18, and we're done. Okay, so I've generated enough data to demonstrate how to convert this into a chart. And that's the word that Excel uses. They call these things charts. You may hear your instructor call it a plot. You may hear your instructor call it a graph. But in Microsoft Excel, it's called a chart. So in order to do that, you highlight the range of data that you want to plot. So to review that, you left click and hold, and then drag across until you've enclosed the entire range of data with a rectangle. And then you go up to the top and you click on insert, and it changes the menu bar at the top. And the middle region of that insert menu bar is charts. And just above the word charts is the option that we care about today, is the scatter plot options. Just go ahead and choose the simplest possible scatter plot, the one that just plots the points. Doesn't try to add lines, doesn't replace the points with smooth lines, etc. Just choose the one that plots the points. So click it, it immediately pastes it in, and I'm going to immediately drag this element, this chart, nearby the data itself. And you can see when I have the chart highlighted or clicked on, there's these circles around this perimeter that's active, and it says that it's actively linked to the data in here. Like for instance, if I clicked in this cell and I just put that, immediately it's going to adjust, and it says now you have a data point that's 4,000 x, x equals 4,000, y equals 9, and it has to accommodate for that by expanding along the x-axis, and you can see that this looks very different than what it did before. I'm going to go back to fix that. All right, so now it adjusts in real time. That's really cool. What you'll need to do, what you can anticipate an instructor asking you to do in the context of a chemistry laboratory assignment with Excel, is you want to create a chart, and then you want to decorate that chart or annotate that chart with an appropriate title, appropriate axis titles, and a few other features. So let's walk through it. The chart title automatically pops up. You can change it by double clicking, and then you have a box that you can edit. So I'm just going to type in this fictitious example, I'm just going to type in y equals 3x, because that was the algebraic expression that I used to generate my set of x and y values. Okay. So this is my chart title. Now I have to go and add a few more features. Now, when you're in this version of Microsoft Excel, if you click on the chart, you can not only see that it's activated because of these circles around the perimeter, but you can also see that there are some features here, these 3 buttons off to the right-hand side. And the top button is the button I care about right now, is the plus button. You want to add some features, add some chart elements. So it already shows you that you have axes, right? The axes are the x-axis, the horizontal axis, and the y-axis, the vertical. So you have the 2 axes, and you have the 2 scales for the axes. And a quick sanity check, you look at the x-axis, it ranges from 0 to 7 in this the visible region here in the chart. And that's great because the range of your data points on the x-axis all fall within that span of 0 to 7, right? And then similarly, just as a second sanity check, you can see that the scale or the axis here ranges on the y-axis from 0 to 20. And you can check the data for your y-axis. It runs within that range, within that span. So you're good to go. Now, we can go ahead and add axis titles. So you click on this box to say, yes, please display them. And you see an axis title on the vertical axis and an axis title on the horizontal axis. I'll go ahead and change this right now. It's a little weird because of this vertical display, but you can still use the keyboard to type, to delete there and then type something new. So I'm just going to call this y-axis. Okay, good enough. And then I will do the same thing here. I'm going to delete this and call it x-axis. Now, when you're doing actual data plotting, like circumference versus diameter or absorbance versus concentration, you just want to make sure what goes on the y-axis and what goes on the x-axis, and then use those labels. Okay, absorbance, typically appears on the vertical or y-axis. Concentration typically occurs on the x-axis, and things that have units, you definitely want to include the units in your axis title. When I teach chemistry laboratory, I have my students repeat after me this mantra that measurements that are unitless are meaningless. Okay, it's important that if you're talking about a concentration, you very clearly communicate what units of that concentration you're dealing with. Grams per milliliter, molarity, percent by volume, like there's very different units for concentration, so you got to be specific. Okay, so moving on. We added the titles for the chart title and the axis titles. We also want to go back and add, we don't need data labels because that's unnecessary extra information. There's no need for error bars. Grid lines, it's up to you if you want grid lines or not. So if I uncheck them, you'll notice the grid lines will disappear. Okay, arguably that makes the plot, or this chart, a little cleaner, and the data points kind of pop out. But grid lines arguably are useful because if you're tracing up from, say, let's say x value of 5, so x equals 5, and you want to trace up just looking exclusively at the chart, and then find out where this point intersects with the y-axis, and you go across to the y-axis and you say, okay, yeah, at x equals 5, y equals 15. And so having those grid lines to trace along is useful. So I'll keep the grid lines on. No need for a legend in this case. A legend is useful if you had multiple data sets plotted on the same chart. We only have one data set, one set of blue dots. In Excel speak, that means a series. So you see the word series right here. I'll click it. You see the word series here, one series of data. And then this is critical, guys. In addition to the chart labeling, you absolutely need to have a trend line. Okay, so click that. If I unclick it, you see that it's just naked dots, nothing connecting them. If I click on trend line, all of a sudden this dotted line, connects the data points. Some ways to adjust the trend line, I'm going to show you right now because you need to know. By default, it chooses linear. The regression analysis that Excel does for you, it just assumes that it's a linear relationship. And most of the time with the chemistry courses that you take at Palomar, you'll be looking at linear relationships between one variable and another. So that's fine. But you want to look at more options. When you click on more options, you open this format trend line pane on the right-hand side of the screen. Notice that it is already pre-selected for linear. And then what's important right at this moment is down at the bottom, this series of 3 checkboxes. And you always want to check with your instructor to be absolutely sure, but generally they're going to expect you to set the intercept, display the equation on the chart, and display the R-squared value. So let's go one by one, what those mean. When you click set the intercept, right, you're telling Microsoft that you want this line, this trend line that it's added, you want this line to definitely, absolutely pass through a specified y-intercept. In this case, the specified y-intercept is 0, 0. So you want this trend line to intersect through 0, 0. And that's mathematically true, right? That's mathematically valid in this case, because if x equals 0, then y equals 0. And so a valid point for this algebraic truth here, this equation, is indeed 0, 0. So that makes legitimate sense. So we'll keep that 0, 0, have that set. Display equation on chart. So I'll go ahead and click that. And when I did that, this little y equals 3x appeared right next to the trend line. So it's the equation that describes the trend line. And notice that it's y equals 3x. That's great. For some reason, it leaves that, so I got to go back here and then back here and then back here to reactivate these options. Okay, so we got the r squared, and we'll click the r squared. So the r squared shows up, and in this case, r squared equals 1. Okay, let me move these a bit. Okay, so then what is the meaning of r squared? Okay, r squared is a statistical measure of the quality of fit of a trend line to the actual data points. In this case, r squared equals 1. And what that means is there is perfect fit. The trend line perfectly fits or aligns with the data points. There's no error or no point or points on this in this series that are off of this trend line. Okay, so that can be indicative of the quality of the data that is collected in an authentic laboratory setting. If the r squared is very high, and typically if it's higher than 0.9, that's an indication of good data, good fit, to substantiate the relationship that you're trying to study. And if it's poor, if the r squared is poor, then that can indicate at least one of two things. It can indicate that there was some problem in the data collection, and so there's scatter all over the place. Or it can indicate that maybe it's not a linear relationship after all. Maybe it's not a linear dependence of y on x. Maybe it's something other than linear. Maybe it's polynomial. Maybe it's exponential. Okay, so it's useful information. And invariably, again, check with your instructor. They're going to want, in addition to these chart titles and axis titles, they're going to want to have the trend line, the equation, and the r squared. So I just showed you how to do those. Just to review, if you have just generated the chart and you want to annotate it with those features, you activate it, you go to this plus sign, you add the features that you are supposed to add, and you can see this little black triangle along each one that opens up more options to further select your specific options. In the case of the trend line, you can do a lot of different things. You can change it from a dashed line or a dotted line to some other format. You can change it from blue to whatever color you wish. It's really up to you. But we've done the basics at this point. So now we're ready to submit this. Now let's assume that it's one of two situations. We're going to go with situation number 1. You have immediate access to a printer. And then situation number 2 is you don't have immediate access to a printer, and so instead you want to convert this to a PDF so that you can then share with your lab mates, or ultimately you can then submit to your instructor. So let's start with the printing option. You click anywhere outside of the chart. Okay, so if I'm in the chart is activated for editing and manipulation, right? So let's click outside of the chart so that we can then go to File, and then click on Print. And since I clicked outside of the chart, Excel is going to preview just the entire spreadsheet and then the chart which was sitting inside the spreadsheet. So that's what you might expect your instructor to ask for. The instructor is going to want to see the raw data that you typed into the cells, and then the chart that you generated from that data. Okay, and conveniently, the way I positioned the chart next to the cells that I populated, it all fits on one page. If for some reason it didn't fit on one page, you could fix that. Let me show you what would happen. let's say I drag the chart over here. Actually, let's drag it right here, and then I want to show you something. Go to print, and you can see the issue of if I have the chart activated, then it just shows the chart under the print. So let's go back. All right, now it shows the Excel spreadsheet with the data in those particular cells in column A and B, and then it shows the chart. And just based on the positioning of the chart on that spreadsheet, it creates this printing issue. It's going to require 2 pages to print the data, and that's not good. Okay, you want to have this all displayed on 1 page. So you can go to this option under print settings, this bottom option where it says no scaling. So you don't change the scaling of what it appears on the print preview. Let's change that to fit sheet on 1 page. That'll shrink the printout so that it fits on 1 page. Okay, so it compresses or shrinks everything so it now just fits on 1 page. You can print 1 page and you're done. Another thing you can do to fix this is go back to the spreadsheet, grab the chart area. So there's like a click and drag operation, and then move it over next to the data, and then go back to print. I have to fix that. I have to click outside of the chart, go back to print, and now it conveniently already displays on 1 page, and you don't have to shrink it, okay, to fit the sheet onto 1 page. So no scaling needed. It doesn't matter whether you choose this option or that option. It already is on 1 page, and you're ready to go. And you can just click print, and it would send it to your printer if you had a printer connected. Now let's go to the alternative situation where you do not have a printer, which is pretty common. I've experienced this in all of the lab courses I've taught at Palomar College. So we're going to go ahead and activate or pursue this option, save as Adobe PDF. So when you save as Adobe PDF, the first thing that pops up is this Acrobat PDF Maker window. You want to make sure that you, in this case, we've only used 1 sheet, right? But just to cover all the bases, let's make sure that we convert the entire workbook. And also, if you were concerned that maybe there was going to be overlap onto multiple pages and you don't want to see that, make sure that you fit things to the paper width, okay? So click on Convert to PDF, and first it's going to ask you to save the Excel file before converting. That's great, you can save it. You can give it a name. I'll give it Book 3. And for this case, I'll just, you know what, just to demonstrate OneDrive, right? I will go ahead and save it to my OneDrive. Okay, done. And then the next step beyond that, after it's saved to OneDrive, it's going to convert it to a PDF. And then it asks you to verify the file name for that PDF that's just been created. And I'm going to also save that to OneDrive. Okay. So both the Excel file and the PDF are now saved to my OneDrive for Palomar College. And I will show you what that looks like in Adobe Acrobat. So this is Adobe Acrobat, a view of the PDF that we just generated. Notice you got the data and then the chart. That is just an alternative illustration or representation of that data that allows you to visually instantly see, oh yeah, there's a linear relationship between X and Y, right? And not only that, but oh yeah, and the equation that defines the trend line, Y equals 3X, okay? So, this is useful, and this is particularly powerful in situations where you don't know a priori or beforehand what the relationship between X and Y actually is. Like I defined the relation, I started with the knowledge Y equals 3X for this fictitious data set. But, if you just collect some data and plot the data and then let Excel generate an equation for you, that becomes powerful and useful. So let's close Adobe Acrobat. That's the view of the PDF. Oh, by the way, again, the PDF is something that you can then just attach to an email that you send to your instructor, or perhaps it's something that you can upload to Canvas if your instructor requests it, but you're good to go. And I want to just make sure that I reiterate the key aspects of what we've gone through, okay? What we've gone through is the fact that not only do you have an email address as a Palomar College student, right? Username at student.palomar.edu, but beyond just simply having an email address, you have access to several apps in the Microsoft Office 365 suite. And one of those apps is Microsoft Excel, okay, which you can definitely take advantage of just online from within your favorite internet browser. Or even better, you can go and download Microsoft Office 365, which includes Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and more, and download those apps and use them on your computer. Okay, and we just went through how to use Microsoft Excel in a situation where you could naturally expect to encounter in chemistry labs at Palomar College. So I hope that this video tutorial was useful, and please just ask your instructor for further assistance. We're here to help. We want you to succeed. We want you to be able to use the tools that are at your disposal. We want you to feel comfortable and confident in doing what you need to do to succeed in your courses. So thank you for watching and listening, and have a wonderful, wonderful semester.